Yeah, I guess we do have time for a few questions apparently, so I'd be happy to entertain any comments or questions.
I've got one for you, Ray.
Okay.
You talked about the graduate programs and training for folks from your generation, and alluded to the problem of universities not teaching students or careers outside of the academic track. What are your thoughts about what the universities need to be doing nowadays?
The American Historical Association has launched a new initiative. Some of you may be reading about it in Perspectives and some of the other publications that talks about tuning history. And it's like the academics are. It's almost been 40 years that they've been trying to discover that there are all these wonderful jobs in the federal community, and they haven't quite mastered that. They haven't quite figured it out yet. Obviously, there are some very nice, very good public history programs around the country, and certainly the academic historical community has incorporated federal public history programs in most of their major events and their annual conventions. And now I understand they're going to quit marking them as separate public history because that sort of discriminates against them in a kind of a funny sort of way. Say, oh, this is just public history, don't go to that one. So I think there's a lot of work that a lot of universities could do to recognize this, and certainly we want to keep training academic historians to do their thing, and to be teachers, and to be researchers, and be scholars, and to do all the wonderful things that academic historians do. But the departments have a job. They're turning out students. There was one recently at the AHA this year. There was lots of talk about students incredibly frustrated because there just wasn't any work, and they'd all been trained to do a certain thing, and they weren't even looking. They didn't even know they had the potential, because of the skills they already have, to do other things with their degree besides be classroom teachers, write the monograph, get tenure, and live happily ever after. That is still a goal for many, and I would not deny that that's not a worthy goal, but it is only one of many things, and not necessarily the only thing we need to do. Right here at the University of Maryland, where so many people, many of whom are in this room, we call ourselves the Maryland Mafia, and Matt's a part of that, and a number of others who I mentioned in my talk. The fact that we did this without any particular help or encouragement from our professors, and it means that there's just much more work to be done. And I don't know exactly how to do that, I see departments of history in most schools as incredibly conservative, regardless of what their politics are. And in terms of departmental politics, they think only of duplicating themselves. And I think that's a problem. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Ray, I just wondered if in looking at your career and all the interactions that you've had with different federal history offices and the like, you might offer some insights for all of us on how do you best cultivate allies? How do you best get advocates behind federal history? You kind of alluded to the bureaucrats out there that we all deal with who, might not understand the values that you're so well emphasizing. And what kinds of things have you seen as ways in which those alliances and those strategic sorts of things that Dr. Hewlett and others have done might be passed on to the rest of us somehow?
Very good question. I don't have the answer to it in a nutshell anyhow. That would be the subject of another talk or maybe a book. But I think the work that this society does in creating a network, I know how important that was to me when I was working in the House of Representatives. And of course, even though the House and the Senate never spoke to one another, the fact that the Senate Historical Office took me under its wing and gave me assistance and advice and encouragement all along the line, there was a collaborative effort. I think many of you experience that in your own work, where there are certain agencies that you work with more than others. And you build collaborative networks with those folks. The National Archives, of course, which has all the records, is sort of central to all of this. And I always loved getting a chance to get into the archives and to be with the people who were at the archives. I don't know how we make ourselves, sell ourselves, other than by doing good work. And so many of you are doing just that. You have made yourself indispensable to your agencies. In some cases where there's more of a public involvement, I think it's a little easier to do. Certainly the National Park Service knows it needs historians to interpret sites, so it's easier for them to see that. Other agencies might not see the value directly, but it's so important that we understand all of this and continue to build collaborative networks with our colleagues. Other than that, I don't know how else to answer your question. We are engaged in a very human enterprise, and the more we reach out to one another for help and advice and guidance, I think the better off we are. One more, and I think that'll be it, if there's one more. And if there is not, again, I thank you very much. Have a good conference.